Hey guys, it's Will here and welcome back to another battle report. Tonight got something a little bit different for you. We're going to be playing Age of Sigmar. Now I've played a lot of 40k recently and it's been a long time since I've played Sigmar, and I think I've only ever had one video on the channel, but looking to get a bit more into it, especially now I have finished painting the first 1,000 points of my Stormcast Eternal army. So tonight my Stormcast Eternal making their full tabletop debut, going against Sam's Khorne Bloodbound, who you have seen previously in my my last Age of Sigmar battle. We were going to do 1,000 points, but Sam seems to have lost 100 points of models somewhere along the line, so we're just going to do 900. But that's fine. I can do 900, no problem. Going to be using the rules and missions from the General's Handbook. Haven't rolled for mission yet, but before we do that, let's take a look at the armies. So here's my 900 points of Stormcast Eternals. It's most of the content of the starter box with a few additional models. So starting off, we've got my General. That is my Lord Celestant on a Dracoth. And as you can see, I've gone for these nice fiery bases on here. Then for my battle line units, I've got one unit of Judicators with the bows on there, and then a unit of 10 Liberators with hammers and shields. Then I've got my Prosecutors, again just the 3 out of the starter box, and then 5 Retributors. All the units that can have a prime, which is, well, all the infantry units have a prime. I also got painted up a Lord Relictor here, but unfortunately due to the points limit wasn't able to fit him in tonight, but look forward to see him on the channel soon. Anyway, let's take a look at the forces of the Blood God. And here's Sam's Khorne Bloodbound. So starting over here we have the Khorgorath from the starter box, and then his general is this guy who is the Mighty Lord of Khorne. He's then got a Slaughter Priest, a Bloodstoker and a Bloodsecrator, so a nice little selection of characters here to give him some significant buffs, and then the one big badass fighty guy. Then we have a unit of 20 Blood Reavers, 5 Blood Warriors and 3 Mighty Skull Crushers. So a fairly compact army, bulked out by these guys with a lot of characters here. But anyway, let's roll for mission and see how the army's deployed. So the mission we've rolled up is called 3 Places of Power. We have these 3 objectives along the centre line, one in the centre and one 18 inches either side, represented by these sacred magical stones, I guess they are. And essentially only heroes can score these objectives, and they're worth 1 point for every turn that the hero has already held it. So the first turn he holds it, he gets 1 point. Second turn he holds it, he gets 2 points. Now this is obviously going to give Sam a bit of an advantage, as he has 4 heroes in his list and I just have the 1. But you know, there's more to it than just that. Obviously if I can get a massacre I can win, and only heroes can force other heroes off these objectives, so it's going to be a bit sort of all down to my Lord Celestant here. So as for the armies, I won the roll-off to go first, and therefore easily finished deploying first. I've got my archers, Judicators and Liberators down this side, and then my Retributors, Lord Celestant and Prosecutors down this side. He's clustered his army a bit more in the centre, but the heroes are nicely spread out, so there's a hero within relatively short distance of every objective. But anyway, that's the army's set up. As I finished first, I get to choose to go first or second, and I think in this case I'm actually going to choose to go second. So here we are with the Chaos first turn. So the Chaos first turn was exactly what you'd expect from a full Khorne army. The whole army just ran forwards towards the objective. Nothing subtle, just a headlong charge. None of the heroes were in range of any of the objectives, and the Bloodstoker did whip these guys, but they rolled a 1 on their run move, so even though they had +3 inches, they were still among the slowest units to move forward. But yeah, so they're getting pretty close to these objectives, but thankfully the heroes aren't there yet. Let's see what the Stormcast can do in response. So a little bit of a conundrum here. I wanted to get forward to get to those objectives, but at the same time didn't want to leave myself too open to being charged by all these Khorne units. So most of my army just moved forward slowly. I brought the prosecutors along here, allowing them to still be in range of the mighty skull crushers, and my Lord Celestant moved up into the edge of the woods here alongside the retributors. In the shooting phase, the Lord Celestant fired his Dracoth Stormbreath. Was really aiming for the mighty skull crushers, but with its ability to hit multiple units, actually managed to miss the skull crushers, but do 3 mortal wounds to the blood warriors. Other than that, the prosecutors fired at the skull crushers and did 1 wound, and the judicators managed to hit and roll a 5 for the wounds with my shockbolt bow, but he saved all of them, but then put 2 further wounds on with the regular skybolt bows on there. So not a terrible turn, but could have done a little bit more damage, but you know, we need to soften these guys up as they come in. Anyway, now comes what could be a key moment of the battlefield. We've got to roll for initiative for the next turn. Sam's got a 2, I've got a 4, so we get another Stormcast turn. So here we are at the end of the second Stormcast shooting phase. The Dracoth and the prosecutors moved over here and targeted the blood warriors with their ranged attack. The Dracoth also managed to put 2 wounds onto the Khorne, so they're looking in a little bit of a sorry state as I'm setting up to charge there. These guys just edged up a little bit, didn't want to overextend them, planned to use them to countercharge, and I swung these guys across as a screening unit against the inevitable charge of the Skull Crushers. Prosecutors moved up behind and once again took aim at the Skull Crushers, so I put a few more wounds onto them, but they're by no means out of the fight. So as we head into the combat phase, I've got 2 charges to make. Firstly, this guy. He is going 11 inches, that will be well in there. And then these guys actually get 3d6 on their charge, and they're going for the Blood Warriors. 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, that should be enough. Let's have a look. Does that get me within half an inch? Yes, it does. From this guy, that gets me within half an inch. So there we go. 2 charges, onto the combat phase. So that combat didn't quite work out as planned. My Lord Celestant did manage to put 4 wounds onto the Khorne, but then the Blood Warriors only put a wound on the prosecutors. The prosecutors then killed 1 of the Blood Warriors before the remainder ran off to battle shock. And then I realised these guys, the mighty skull crushers, were actually within 3 inches of my prosecutors thanks to the long wings. So yeah, the bases rule rather than the model to model rather than base to base rule caught me out there. So they were able to fight as well. Killed 2 of my prosecutors and left the prime on a single wound. Thankfully he's immune to battle shock because of my hero ability. But then the Khorne put 3 wounds onto the Lord Celestant. So yeah, not ideal, and to cap it off, I don't actually score this objective this turn because it's at the end of your movement phase that you score it, not at the end of combat. So at the end of the movement phase he was still down here. So unfortunately didn't score a point there, but you know, I did manage to get rid of the Blood Warriors, which is a nice unit turned off the flank, and I may have redirected the Skull Crushers a bit away from my main battle line. However, they're a little bit close to my hero, and if he goes down, there's very little I can do to win this. Anyway, here we go, on to Chaos, turn 2. So, start of the Khorne turn, the banner dropped down here, so that gives a nice aura of +1 attack, which is +2 attack for these guys because of their special ability. They were then also whipped by the Bloodstoker just to make sure they could get into combat, although that wasn't really ever in question. But it also gave them reroll 1s to wound, in addition to the reroll 1s to hit they got from his general's ability. So this unit suddenly really buffed, slammed into these guys, as did the Mighty Lord of Khorne and the Bloodstoker. Over on this side, the Khorne put another wound onto my general, after he'd lost 2 already from the Slaughterpiece Prayer. So my Lord Celestant is now down to a single wound, although he does have the Phoenix Gem, so he'll gain 1 back at the start of my next hero phase. These guys really didn't do as much damage as they'd hoped. I killed 3 of them with the Liberators, and then the Blood Reavers proceeded to only do a single wound. No, they killed a whole Liberator, actually. They killed 2 wounds in total, so 1 Liberator dead, and then the Mighty Lord of Khorne did a single wound to the Liberators as well, and that guy then got sucked off into the realm of chaos by the Mighty Axe of Khorne special rule. Fortunately for Khorne, the Bloodstoker and the Juggernaut Riders didn't do a lot to this unit, but the Slaughter Priest and the Mighty Skull Crushers did manage to finish off the last of the Prosecutors, and my Lord Celestant did manage to win his fight in the end with a Korgorath. So things are a little bit finely balanced. Sam has scored a point because that Bloodstoker was within 3 inches of that objective at the start of this turn, and now it's time to roll off for the next battle round. So who's off first? Sam gets a 5, and I get a 5, so we re-roll.
You had last turn.
So yeah, we just looked that up. You do re-roll in the case of a tie. There you go, Sam. It's a 4 and a 2. So another Khorne turn. This could be devastating for the forces of Sigmar. So with 2 Khorne turns in a row, Sam tried to take advantage and assassinate my general. So he ran his Slaughter Priest over here into combat with this guy. But as you can see, the Slaughter Priest woofed his attacks, and in retribution the Lord Celestant turned round and fucked him round the head with his Tempestus hammer, so no more Slaughter Priests there. So that's a nice little advantage. However, in the centre here, with all the buffs that these guys had, they'd been whipped by the Bloodstoker, were under the effect of the banner from the Bloodsecrator, and had the +1 to hit from the general. They killed about half of my Prosecutors before the Mighty Lord of Khorne and eventually the Skull Crushers wiped out the whole unit. So all my Liberators are now dead, but that 200-point unit has delayed the centre of his army. So yeah, I've still got some good units up. It's my turn next, and although he is still controlling that place of power, it certainly ain't over yet. Here we go with Stormcast turn 3. Oh, incidentally, none of the units in there have had to take battle shock yet. These guys were under the effect of the Inspiring Presence, and my general's command ability was 24 inches of immune to battle shock. So battle shock really hasn't been a big factor, other than that early unit of Blood Warriors that were taken out earlier on. But here we go, 3rd Stormcast turn. So I started my turn by moving my Lord Celestant over here to get into combat with that banner bearer there, needing to get rid of him to remove his buff, and also charge my Retributors into the big melee in the middle. The Prosecutors stood back, Judicators stood back and fired. I had a lot of different targets to choose from, and in the end I went for the Blood Reavers. Only managed to kill 2 of them in the end, though, after I missed despite a reroll with my my Prime's weapon. Other than that, I also put a few mortal wounds on units in here with the Storm Breath from the Lord Celestant. He then got into combat with the Bloodsecrator, and the Retributors got nicely into combat, and I was faced with a difficult decision. Do I go Retributors first, or do I go Lord Celestant? Thinking that that Bloodsecrator didn't look too scary in combat, I went with the Retributors first, hoping to do as much damage as possible, and I did manage to take out the Mighty Lord of Khorne, and also kill one of the Juggernaut Riders, as well as 2 of the Blood Reavers, so nice and effective combat there. But then he picked his Bloodsecrator, as I expected, and he put 2 wounds at Rend 1 on my Lord Celestant, which just meant I needed to pass 2 4-ups to stay alive. And I rolled 2 2s, and that's my general dead. So both generals have died, but with the type of mission and the number of characters in the Khorne list, that means the only way I can win now is to completely wipe him off the board, and I've got 2 turns to do that in now, because that was my 3rd. in the rest of this melee down here, killed 2 more of the Retributors with the combined effort of the Blood Reavers and the Skull Crushers. Skull Crushers? Yeah, Mighty Skull Crushers. So, yeah, got a couple of battle shock tests to take here. First, for the Retributors, their leadership, bravery 7. They lost 2 guys, so that's a 5, so they're fine. And then the Skull Crushers got a 4, they only lost 1 guy. Their bravery is clearly going to be higher than 5. Apparently it's 6, so yeah, both units are fine, and we need to roll off for who gets to go first in the 4th battle round. So I got a 6, Sam's got a 5, so we have another Stormcast turn. Here we go. So my 4th turn was short but effective. Managed to kill 5 of the Blood Reavers with the fire from the Judicators. Sorry, I'm still learning the names of these guys. Most of that damage was done by the Prime. Then in combat, managed to finish off the Blood Crushers and another 2 of the Blood Reavers with the attacks from the Retributors. In revenge, he killed 1 Retributor and put a wound on another one. Retributors are going to need another battle shock test, and that's a 1, so they're absolutely fine. And we get on to the 4th and penultimate Khorne turn. So with all his units either locked in place or engaged, it was a really quick Khorne turn, just straight on to combat after whipping the Blood Reavers, and they killed another one of the Retributors and left the Prime on just 2 wounds. So yeah, it's crunch time here. In response, the Prime managed to put 2 wounds on the Bloodstoker, who then didn't manage to do any damage back. So Bloodstoker's down to his last wound, but the Prime could be in trouble here. But anyway, here we go, rolling off first for Battle Shock for the Retributors again. That's a 5, so they are just about okay. They've got Bravery 7, and then rolling for the final turn. So Stormcast get a 2, Chaos get a 5. So yep, Chaos turn. So with Chaos having the initiative on that turn, it was a nice and simple job for them to kill off my last Retributor in combat. A little bit of bad armor saves, but ultimately it was what was going to happen. That leaves just my Prosecutors going into, Judicators going into my final turn, and with Sam already having the lead on points, I've got no opportunity to score any more points because I have no heroes and I haven't got enough time and units left to table him. So that is a clear Khorne victory. Thank you very much for a good game, Sam. Join us in a minute for the post-game. So there we go. After the Stormcast appeared to have the early advantage there, the forces of Khorne really managed to grind back a victory there. So a nice one, Sam. You beat me.
It'd be interesting to have more games, I think.
Definitely, yeah. I mean, it didn't quite go as grindy as we feared it might have done in the centre. I mean, it managed to have some units come around the side,
yeah.
But then
I think that was a bit more less just because it was less points. So
yeah, and I think the lower points certainly for
it feels better in lower points.
Yeah, particularly because we're not too used to it. And the last time we tried to do 2K, and I'd certainly be up for putting another 500 points into that. I've got
you just want to get your big dragon in.
Well, yeah, I've got a Star Drake in the works. Somebody in the works. I mean, I've taken it out of the box, looked at it, and thought, wow, no, I must finish my other stuff first. But yeah, there's a Star Drake coming. I thought the Retributors did rather well when they eventually got to combat.
I say they were so slow, and because of the turn priority thing, where it's like back and forth. There was like 2 turns in a row, they just stood there.
Yeah,
doing
so
anything.
It's
I'm not a fan of the turn priority.
Yeah, I mean, the Age of Sigmar does encourage you to house rule things, so we could always try it without turn priority and see how that feels. I think.
Otherwise, the mission did turn into a bit of a grind in the middle.
Yeah, I think it would have been different if I'd have had more characters, because you'd have had other points you'd have really needed to focus on, but all you had to do was stop that one guy, and there was not a lot I could do from then on other than wipe you out.
I scored a point, you scored a point, so I scored another one, killed your character, and you can catch up.
Yeah, so
yeah.
And if it'd been the full 1,000 point list, because that was obviously just 900, I had to drop my my second character to do that.
I swore that I had 1,000 in that box before, and now it's not. It's 900. So
not quite sure where 100 points are gone, but yeah, a fun game nonetheless. So thanks a lot for watching. Let us know what you thought in the comments section. Is there something we're doing majorly wrong? What changes would you suggest we make to our list? What house rules do you use for your Sigmar games? Anyway, thanks a lot for watching. I'll see you guys again soon. Bye.